Hey everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Are You In? So this one's going to be a little bit different today. I did have something planned out, but with the passing of Chris Cornell, I thought it would be proper to do one last video around this thing, and what better way than to pay homage to uh, Soundgarden's masterpiece, Superunknown. So I'm going to wax poetically a little bit about this CD. Even though this came out more than 20 years ago, there are still people who probably have never listened to it. So I'm going to do my best to tell you why you should listen to this, and do it in a shorter time frame as possible. Now, who are Soundgarden? Well, for those who don't know, Soundgarden was at this point in time was a band with four members. We had Chris Cornell, of course, as the lead singer, Kim Thayil as the lead guitarist, Ben Shepherd as the bassist, and Matt Cameron as the drummer. And they were a quintessential grunge band. Now, throughout their time, they put out six CDs. And it's actually very interesting to listen back to their CDs, at least their first two, which is Ultra Mega OK and Louder Than Love. Those two have a completely different sound than the remaining four. Those two came out in, I believe, 88 and 89 respectively, and has more of an experimental, like, alternative metal kind of sound. Definitely felt like they were looking for their sound. Definitely a garage kind of sound in terms of rock. So it was very interesting to look back at those two. Personally, I don't like them as much, but they are all right CDs. Then 99, no, sorry, and 91, their third CD, Bad Motorfinger, comes out, and that's where they finally start introducing the sound that we know as Soundgarden. There's a lot of hits on that CD. Rusty Cage is on that. Jesus Christ Pose is on that. Outshined is also on that. But it's interesting because it's kind of like a little transitional CD where they still have some of their sound from the last two albums, but they are starting to get into that grunge scene, as people know today. And even though they're starting to get a little bit more towards grunge, there's still a lot of theatrical sense in Cornell's voice, where he has a fantastic voice, one of the best rock singers I've ever heard. But it definitely still feels a little bit over the top in some ways. Now, he has a very powerful voice. If you hear it on Outshine, you can definitely hear that, just how powerful it can be. But you could also hear just a little bit how over the top it was. So 94 hits, and they drop Superunknown. Now, of course, I was 3, potentially 2 at the time when that came out. So, I don't have as much recollection of it as it came out, but I did listen to it when I'm in my teenage years. And of course, what do I think about that album? Well, let's see. It is one of my favorite CDs of all time. Easily top 3, with Core by Stone Temple Pilots and 4 by Blues Traveler also in that top 3. If I can, just off the top of my head. But why do I love it so much? Well, for me, it stands out because just how diverse of a grunge CD it is. Now, there was basically 5 or 6 main grunge bands throughout the 90s. You had, of course, Soundgarden, you had Pearl Jam, you had Nirvana, you had Alice in Chains, you had Stone Temple Pilots, you technically had Bush. At some point, you could put in Foo Fighters there if you would like. If you also want to throw in Radiohead's first CD, Pablo Honey, you can definitely do that. Uh, but the mainstays are, of course, those bands. And for me, listening back to all of these bands, this is the most diverse CD in terms of grunge. You have five really, really big hits. Black Hole Sun, an anthem for grunge people, right up there with like Even Flow, and of course, uh, Smells Like Teen Spirit. Like, it's definitely up there in terms of an anthem that defined grunge. But that is probably one of their not like a weak single, but uh, the least interesting one. I love Black Hole Sun. I'll sing it all the time. But then you also have Spoon Man, which is in 7/4, and also features an actual spoon like playing solo where someone's just tapping spoons around, which is so interesting. Fell on Black Days, a beautiful song, beautiful ballad, like haunting ballad, if you can call it a ballad, is a song in 6/4. You got My Wave, which is 5/4. You have The Day I Try to Live, which is also in 7/4. So it's interesting how you have these singles, these very popular songs in their day that um, try to stay away from mainstream, yet it became mainstream. And I can't think of really any other bands that have been able to do that over the years. Like, you don't really hear a lot of songs in 7/4, let alone 6/4. Like, you maybe like Electric Feel or Hey Ya, like the occasional song with 4/4, but and then a measure of 6/4. So to be able to bridge that gap and be experimental, yet also be mainstream, which to me is an incredible feat. And hopefully down the line we could see more of that, because you know not every song has to be in 4/4. Not every song has to have the same type of beat, or the same type of feel. And it's something I would like to see as a musician change. I mean, it that's just part of this CD. Again, I'm just waxing poetically with this. The fact that you have five songs so diverse yet also popular is crazy, but also the fact that that's just only a small sample of the CD. That's 5 out of the 15 songs, and each of them bring their own particular feel to the table. Now, like for me, I've been listening to the CD over and over again this last week, and just looking down the list, for me, the first 10 songs I could say like are very good, except for one I don't like as much. Limbo Wreck isn't my favorite song on the album, but just going through that from Let Me Drown all the way down to The Day I Tried to Live, it's 10 songs that are just hit you in the face every single moment and makes you want to listen. And that's an amazing feat, to be able to have such a powerful and such an interesting start to a CD, and that's 10 songs. Like that's pretty standard for CDs right now, where you have CDs that are 9 or 10 songs long, or 30 to 40 minutes. This CD's 70 minutes, and to have 10 songs just be fantastic from the beginning. And that doesn't mean that the last 5 songs are bad. No, personally, right after, so the set list, real quick for people, is Let Me Drown, which, first off, fantastic opening song to a CD. For people, for me in general, I believe a great CD has to be a CD that starts strong and continues going. And Let Me Drown is one of the best opening songs to a CD ever, in my opinion. it from the get-go, it's telling you what this CD is going to be, and it's not going to hold any bars, anything back, you know? It's going to hold nothing back. From there, you have My Wave, the song in 5/4, which is so catchy. Fell on Black Days, a beautiful song that just builds and builds. You have Mailman, a very underrated song. Just a fun song to sing as well. Then you got Superunknown. That's the other technical single from that album. Again, not my favorite single, but it's still a very good song. And then you got Head Down, I believe a song which in part is in, I think it's like 4/4 and 6/4, might have a little bit of 10/4 in it. Just a very interesting song. Again, not my favorite, but a very interesting song nonetheless. Then Black Hole Sun, which is song 7 on that CD. We're already at song 7, and that's when you get Black Hole Sun and you get Spoon Man, probably the two biggest songs from that CD, and it's right in the middle. That's how strong this CD is in terms of songs, and that's not even getting to the last single. I mean, Limo Wreck is 9, not my favorite song, but then you got The Day I Try to Live at 10. To be able to pack so much strong songs in that amount of time is insane. And if you were to have just had those 10 songs, that would still be an amazing CD. But then you still got 5 more. Kickstand, fun song that's only like a minute and a half long. Very, very punky sound, but fits right in the middle of that CD very well. Then you got Fresh Tendrils. Again, not a song that I really remember as much, but still a good song. 4th of July, a very dirty sound song that's another interesting, fun song to sing. Then you have Half, which is probably the weirdest song on the album. Has this very Middle Eastern feeling sound, and just kind of out of place, but that's the beauty of this CD, is that even though it's far-fetched to have it there, it still works for the sound that they've created. And then, like Suicide, the last song is another fantastic ballad song that just builds and builds. And that's a perfect end to such an amazing CD. It's hard for me to explain how diverse of a sound this CD has. Because I feel like nowadays with rock, it's kind of harder to have a CD that just bridges different sounds and different ideas in such an amazing way, without losing the listener's attention. I feel like a lot of rock CDs kind of have a lot of songs that sound very similar to each other. And that's not a knock on these CDs. There's a lot of great rock CDs that are still coming out. It's just, this was a perfect CD for the perfect time, where there was this place of experimentation that was working. The grunge scene is, to me, something so unique that I haven't seen come even close since it's basically ending. To have so many diverse songs and sounds created in this scene, then also have it go so quickly. In like basically a decade, it was gone. That's what makes this so special. Now, I'll touch more about that in a second, but the other really, really important thing to touch on with this is two different things. Just how explosive Kim Thayil's guitar work is on these albums. I would say he's a pretty underrated guitarist in terms of his time, and it shows on this album, just like how the best way I can explain it is he takes his guitar work from the previous albums, very noisy, very full of a lot of different sound, um, fast paced, very sporadic type of playing, but he puts it into a more not conventional, but more compact. I guess compact would be a good word. Just like it's focused. It's much more focused sporadicness, if that makes any sense. Um, which kind of doesn't. But that's what I mean by that, is that there's this form for all these songs, and yet he, even though everything feels sporadic, at the same time it sounds like everything is intentional, and that is the in essence of a great guitarist, to be able to have that ability to go wherever you want it in a solo, but still make it sound like every note that you have is meaningful. And then in terms of Cornell's work, like I said before, the last CDs kind of showed him as a showman, and very over the top showman. And this is the first CD that shows just how he can change up his voice, and how understated he can be. Perfect example, Mailman. On that particular song, he's very, for the most part, he's very subdued throughout the whole entire song. And the 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 coolest thing that shows that is during the verses. He goes on a falsetto note, on something that he can easily hit in his chest voice, and that easily anyone could hit in their chest voice. If you're in the Barry tenor range, like for example, it's "Hello, don't you know me? I'm the dirt beneath your feet." That particular note is an E. And that's a pretty common note for a lot of men to be able to hit. And to have it so subdued in his falsetto is so interesting, especially with the showman that he can be. And now he does be a showman later in the song. As the song builds, he builds with it, of course. And that's the cool thing about his singing in general. Fell on Black Days is the same type of idea. He starts very low in his voice, very bluesy sound, and then as the song goes on, he hits, I want to say it's a D in falsetto that's so powerful. And that's just the quintessential thing about Chris Cornell, though, that he finally shows through in this CD as well as other ones in the future. Like, just being able to have power, but be able to use it when it's important, rather than just to show it as showmanship. Now, there are still songs on there that he does use it just ridiculously in general, but like Love's Like Suicide, he is very over the top in a lot of different ways. But again, that's another one that builds. And I think that's the coolest thing about this CD, is that I feel like he learned as a singer to combine the two. And if you are a aspiring rock singer, listen to this album. Listen to this album to just hear what your voice can be. This is definitely the album that made me want to be able to harness my falsetto in a way that is powerful, but also subdued in ways. And I'm still working on that. And someday, hopefully, I will be able to hit these notes the way that Chris Cornell does. But to me, this is the quintessential rock album in terms of voice and just how you can use it. God, I just love this CD, guys. I know I'm just rambling in certain ways, and maybe this hasn't sold you for this album, but that, and this is where it comes down to it. If you're not a grunge fan, if you've never been a grunge fan, this isn't going to change your mind. You know, that's, I don't think that's ever going to be able to change your mind if you don't like that style. But if you've ever been interested in just trying to listen to a grunge CD, go for this one. This is going to be the most diverse grunge CD you're probably ever going to listen to. And that's nothing to take away from any of the great other grunge CDs. There are so many great grunge CDs in general, and that's what is amazing about this particular period of time, is just how many amazing and monumental rock CDs that were churned out from that time. Like Pablo Honey for Radiohead, you know, is not their best CD, but it does have Creep on there, and it does have that sound. So does the Bends a little bit as well, but that's a different story. Dirt by Alice in Chains is such a great CD in terms of different harmonies that grunge could create. I mean, Nevermind has some of the best grunge songs ever, and of course it has songs like Teen Spirit, which is probably overdone by now, but still was a monumental song and showed just where grunge could be. 10, Pearl Jam's first album, has so many great songs. Even Flow, Alive. It has Black. I believe it has Black. And just like another very versatile grunge CD. Then you got Core, Stone Temple Pilots' first album that had, you know, Plush, all these great songs as well. And, you know, that's close to being one of my favorite CDs of all time as well. Just the list goes on. Bush's first album, which, you know, unfortunately, I can't remember off the top of my head what it is called, but has, again, a lot of great songs and has a completely different grunge sound. I feel like I could just wax politically about every single one of these CDs. But to me, Superunknown is the one that stands out the most to me. And it will have a near and dear place in my heart, hopefully until I die. And I could listen to the CD over and over again and get something new from it every single time because it's so diverse in sound and so complex, and yet works so well in the mainstream for its time. So, again, if you're not a grunge fan, I'm not going to sell you on this. But if you've ever been interested, just to check it out, you know, even just to hear Chris Cornell, because you might have never heard of him before, take a look. I highly recommend this CD. And, you know, I would love to hear what you guys think about this CD as well. I would love to do more grunge CDs at some point, or even just looking at going back in time and looking at these CDs, because these are near and dear to my heart, and I could talk about them for hours. Or if you want me to do more of Soundgarden's discography, I could do that. You know, the interesting thing is once this one hit, their last two albums kind of have the same type of sound, but you know, they still hold their own. Like Down on the Upside is an underrated CD that also has a lot of great singles. It just didn't get it wasn't as big because, of course, how can you top a CD that went 5 times platinum and sold over 10 million copies worldwide? That's, to be able to do that and put up like numbers that pop albums are doing, that's incredible, and that shows that it could stand the test of time. It just happened that Down on the Upside had to follow it. And then King Animal in 2012 was also a very good CD. A great homage back to what they had before. So I'm going to stop now because I'm going to just talk forever about this CD. But check it out. That's all I can say. Check it out. I'm actually going to leave a playlist of that CD in the at the end of this video. Of course, please subscribe if you found this interesting at all. Comment and let me know what other CDs you would like me to take a look at. Like it if you will. Share it if you will. Again, thank you so much for watching these past videos. Thank you for letting me get the chance to pay tribute to someone that is very, very important when it comes to my upbringing as a musician, as a singer, as a songwriter, and just looking at these last two videos, if it's any type of tribute, and if it's basically, it's what I can do, it's what I as a musician would love to do, and I'm not just a musician, I'm a music historian. I'm someone who um, I'm a storyteller. I'm someone who wants to let people know about the history of music and where we come from and where we're going to be. Because you can't build on music if you don't know where you came from. So if I can show people who these people were and just how important they were to the music industry, I've done my service. So thank you so much. I will have uh, another song out Tuesday, hopefully, and then I will start looking at some more CDs from 2017 for Are You In? But thank you so much for watching, and please, as Chris Cornell says, just be yourself. That's all that you can do. So until then, I will see you in the next video. Peace.